Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, stop this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. Everybody in this context refers to us and our cats. You are free to feel however you want about Rand. He's a fictional character. Please don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
That's about all I can say.
Orange, like me.
Didn't we do that once for a different episode?
I
can't
so.
remember who
It
died,
might
though.
have been when Hopper died the first time. He's the only character I care about.
He's the only one who deserves the Amazing Grace bagpipes. Oh, Hopper, we hardly knew thee.
I can't believe they managed to kill him twice.
I know, it was truly so brutal. It was kind of like they seemed to be aware of the fact that of all of the characters in Perrin's circle, Hopper was the only one worth
Yeah.
garnering an emotional reaction of any kind. So they were like, yeah. It's kind of like, you know, when cheap Hallmarkish movies are like, well, a dog has to die.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but you killed Hopper, who was arguably better rounded than most of the human characters.
Okay, legitimately. Let's talk about this. First of all, this is Everybody Hates Rand.
Your Friendly Neighborhood Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Emily Shusha.
And I am Sally Goodger. And I don't know if this is me just being, like, a little pathetic. And I'm willing to acknowledge that sometimes I just don't like it when media does hard things. But I just feel really over the whole idea of, like, feeling like you have to kill a character in order for there to be stakes.
Sure.
I feel like it's something that media has not been able to let go of, and therefore we get a lot of deaths that just don't make any sense. Like, the only reason they happen is for a character and for us to be sad.
Yeah, there's deaths that are just, like, emotionally manipulative, like
Yeah.
when dogs die,
Yeah.
usually. And when Hopper dies here, there's not really any plot reason for it, I
Right.
suppose we should say. Like, if you're a story crafter,
Yeah.
and you're including the type of story that may, you know, not a children's book, or maybe even
Maybe
a children's book. Yeah, children have to
can
deal with death
hard
too.
things, yeah.
Any type of story, if you're, like, including a death, then you have to think quite hard about it, obviously, because death is a big topic.
Yeah, it's a huge topic.
And you have to be able to justify... I think you should have to be able to justify it for, like,
Yes.
narrative reasons.
Yes.
Rather than just, I don't know what I was going to do with this character after this point, or I wanted this other character to feel some type of way about it. Hopper was fridged. That's what...
Hopper was
Hopper
the
fridged.
first instance of dog fridging.
Canine fridging.
Canine fridging.
Title of this episode. But yeah, like, all that's serving here is to make Perrin angrier
Yes.
at Slayer when we have
Yeah.
given him, you know, he's already quite pissed
Yeah.
off at Slayer.
Hopper really was fridged. And it was an unnecessary fridging, too.
Yeah. He also got thrown off a building and Perrin had to catch him, and I was like, this is the wolf that can fly. What are you talking about?
I know. The whole thing, we can get into the whole structure of this scene because it is it's very Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah, very action-packed.
Very action-packed.
Very cinematic.
I found it a little difficult to follow, but I don't know, that was my reading experience. But yeah, to your point, like, I sit in this space a lot. I'm working on a story right now where nobody really dies. Death is still a huge part of it, but it's not like a character dies
Beefs it on screen,
you know, and there's always a voice in the back of my head that's like, maybe you should kill somebody, and I constantly have to be like, that's nothing.
Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah.
I'm constantly like, someone's gotta die. And then I'm like, but I don't really have a reason to kill any of them for, like,
Yeah.
I would feel more upset with myself if I killed them because it would feel like admitting that I couldn't give them a satisfying
Yes.
character arc.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, the current stage I'm at in my current writing project is not such that I've nailed anything. I haven't set anything in
Sure.
stone. Someone might still die, but every time I think about it, I'm trying to, like, unlearn the idea that media is only good if someone dies in a tragic way.
Yes.
And it's like, there are so many good reasons to kill characters. We have come to I think, sort of the intersection of Game of Thrones
Yeah.
with the sort of proliferation, the absolute saturation of...
Hey, could you guys shut the fuck up? What if I went out there and was like, I'm recording a podcast?
I'm recording a podcast about a dead wolf. Could you shut the fuck up?
One of my friends just died.
Excuse me? One of my fictional friends just died?
One of my fictional friends who is also a wolf, and therefore I'm entitled to legal compensation.
Yeah, I think the problem is that we are a generation who read Where the Red Fern Grows at way too young of an
Yeah.
age, and then also went on to watch HBO's Game of Thrones. And so now we're like, people have to die for a story to have any meaning.
Right.
Or depth of feeling.
Right. And there are just like death is huge, obviously, but there are so many other facets of the human experience that can lead to emotional depth and character progression. So I really am just so over. You're right. It is one of the many facets of the Game of Thrones parasite on modern day storytelling, which is so sad because there are even ways in which like the deaths in Game of Thrones are functional in that storytelling.
Yeah, I would put up Game of Thrones
Yeah.
as one of the prime examples of meaningful character deaths in fiction.
Right.
Not every single death, but many of them are extremely good.
Yeah, like spoiler, I guess, the death of Ned Stark at
We
the
all
end
know
of...
where we were when Ned Stark died.
If you are like Emily's sister watching Game of Thrones for the first time a decade after it
Did
released.
we talk about that? I'm sure we talked about it when it was happening. But my sister being like, oh my god, Ned Stark died fully in like 2021 was so incredible
Shocked,
for me.
yeah.
God, I love that.
It was a really funny couple of months when Sarah was going through that and sort of experiencing what everyone had experienced 6.5 years ago. But yeah, like that's such an incredibly well-crafted story decision that makes perfect sense in the progression and yada yada yada. And there are so many other instances of that in Game of Thrones. Like you said, not all of them. It does get a little gratuitous. But it's so unfortunate that like that level of gratuitous violence in general, but like also just like sort of wanton killing of characters is what people have taken from that.
As the like, we have to kill a character, surprise.
Yeah, like that's somehow the success factor and what keeps people engaged. And you're right, it is just emotionally manipulative.
Yeah, and like, to be clear, we're talking about a larger trend in media here,
Right.
not necessarily this death specifically. I do think this was just sort of a like, maybe Robert Jordan was like, yeah, Hopper dies at some point in his notes and hadn't really fleshed that out, or maybe maybe it doesn't really matter, actually.
Yeah.
Why they killed off Hopper, and if I'm being like truly honest with you guys, I don't really care that Hopper died.
Yeah, it is at the point in the story where, like, as much as I think Hopper is an excellent character, Perrin, as we'll talk about, is apparently the best person at Tel'aran'rhiod Riyadh who's ever existed in all of time. So it's not like Hopper has a functional reason to be in the story anymore.
Yeah, Hopper's a classic case of my most resented trope, which is when the mentor dies.
Yeah, because they just don't serve a quote-unquote purpose
They're
anymore.
superfluous once they have
Yeah.
taught the hero everything the hero needs to know. Now
Yeah.
the hero needs to grow. Which I'm just like, that's so boring.
Yep.
But whatever, read my book, I guess.
It's
about
really
it.
good. It's really, really good.
So, yeah, we're not even... Yeah, Perrin's a real Mary Sue in this one, you guys. He's so good at Tel'aran'rhiod Riyadh.
So yeah, it is ultimately really neither here nor there, the functional fact that Hopper died. It is just like, why did Hopper have to die twice? he could also just, like, not be talking to Perrin in the world of dreams anymore. That also seems in line with something Hopper would do.
just be like, okay, bye.
You're done.
Bye.
See you later. But in this sequence, as we have alluded to, we're in the sort of climactic sequence for our two dreamer figures, which are Perrin and Edwene and her coterie of Aes Sedai, who succeed in confronting Missana at the same time that Perrin is confronting Slayer, and they intersect in Tar Valon in a variety of ways. But before we get to that, we have to sit through my favorite thing about Wheel of Time, which is a scene where a bunch of mean women negotiate with each other.
Yeah. It's always so delightful.
Yeah, it's just pleasant to read about.
Yeah. It's actually like being in a work meeting. Is the vibes that it captures. And I'm like, I'm reading a book so that I don't have to be in a work meeting. So
I'm not working. I'm not on Teams.
I go to work meetings so that I make enough money so that I can buy books to not be in work meetings.
Yeah, I know.
And yet, here I am.
Here I am with, like, a power dynamic, an inter-municipal power dynamic.
But narratively speaking, this is something that Edwene and many of our other main characters, so it's a little disappointing that it's just Edwene here in this scene, considering, like, Nynaeve and Elaine have laid so much of the groundwork with the Sea Folk. But this is something that has been building up throughout the series. It's just this negotiation in which the White Tower, the Sea Folk, and the Wise Ones agree to start sending each other what the Wise Ones and Sea Folk call apprentices, and Edwene is like, this is something that the Accepted would do. Basically, having people go out and do study abroads.
Yeah.
With different cultures. And honestly, I have no beef with this. This sounds like a great plan.
I agree.
It is a little annoying that it's coming to us through Edwene's eyes, and that everyone is so, like, competitive about it. All the Aes Sedai later are like, the problem with this is that it doesn't leave us on a pedestal above the other ones. Like, we are on two equal footing with them. You haven't managed to negotiate us to a position of power above them. And Edwene's like, well, basically we lost that negotiating right a long time ago because we've lost so much credibility through what has been going on for the last few books. And also, like, this was the only way. We were either going to force it or we were going to have to compromise. She's like, don't worry, we will be better than them somehow. And it's like, can't you guys just, like, have a healthy perspective about this?
Yeah, just, like, a healthy intercultural exchange and knowledge passing experience.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is the only thing that Edwene really does in her tenure as Amyrlin that actually, to me, is like, here's something that will improve the world.
Right.
Most of the other things Edwene does are, like, White Tower stuff.
Right.
Which the White Tower was so fucked up to begin with that there's no really resuscitating it.
Yeah.
Even with the young Pope at the helm.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't care about the White Tower's sort of survival as a symbol, as a system after the last battle. It's not something that's relevant to me, although I'm glad Edwene is doing her best to improve it. But here's something that's like, wow, multicultural union of channelers. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Bring it on, baby.
Exciting, and hopefully, you know, will maybe at some point, it starts with, like, everyone just sending, like, 2 apprentices just to be, like, to see if it works. But you hope that it leads to, like, down the line, lots of people traveling and gaining understanding of each other, and maybe everyone in this world being a little less fucking xenophobic.
And also just being better people generally.
Just being, like, nicer, kinder, more well-rounded, not convinced that they're correct about everything.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. We can only hope and pray.
I don't know if I would really believe it in Robert Jordan's hands, but I guess I'll never have to.
It's Robert Jordan's world, and everyone in it is mean.
So this is an exciting thing that's happening, and it's a little wild that it's just, like, happening as sort of like a distraction.
Yeah.
It's not that Edwene, like, lays out the actual plan for us. They have been saying, oh, there's going to be a big meeting going on this date. And there is, but it's not the one that they have been advertising.
Right.
All the Aes Sedai meet in, like, a central room in the White Tower while Edwene has this other meeting off to the side. But, crucially, she is waiting for Nynaeve or Swan to come fetch her at any moment. And I'm like, so were you just going to be like, okay, bye, in the middle of negotiations? Yeah. Like, everything finishes up, and she's like, oh, that's weird, I haven't seen Nynaeve and Swan yet.
Yeah, like, what were you gonna do if it's like, BRB, I have to go fight one of the Forsaken?
I'm so sorry,
real
could you
quick.
wait 10 minutes? I have to go, I don't know.
Lobotomize one of the Forsaken.
Yeah, that's what happens. Because we can't kill women.
You can't kill women.
God forbid. Unless they're like random Black Asha. Red
Yeah.
shirts.
Or unless it's someone to make Rand sad.
Yeah, otherwise.
Don't forget. Don't forget about the list. I know the Enlightenment is trying to distract you,
But we won't forget.
but I'll never forget.
I'll never forget.
I've been tortured by that.
Always remember.
Yeah, the meeting finishes and the wise ones are like, what the fuck? I thought we were supposed to be fighting. And
Everyone's like, yeah, that's so weird. And then Swan shows up and is like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. They didn't like try and eavesdrop on us like we thought they were going to, so that then we could do a trap. Instead, they ambushed us, and it's just been crazy fighting, and multiple people are dead already. And I'm like, that's so great. I love cutting down on the numbers of Aes Sedai names that I have to remember.
Yeah.
So, honestly. But Edwene takes off with the wise ones and a couple of the other Aes Sedai she's with. They like reconvene and start setting up like a plan. And so we'll be flashing back to Edwene throughout this scene as she is just like bouncing around the White Tower in Teleron Riyadh fighting the Black Aja. And you know, I'm not gonna give you the blow by blow. That's just what's happening.
you can read it.
Simultaneously, though, it is important that Perrin is moving through the world of dreams with the dream spike in hand. He can only make these small jumps, and eventually Slayer intercepts him, and Perrin decides, oh, I'm going to go hide. I'm going to go use Tarvalon as more of a like urban battleground, lots of hiding spots and stuff. So he takes the dream spike to Tarvalon, which we know affects the real world in that traveling will no longer be able to be happening there, and also affects the people in Teleron Riyadh in that they cannot like jump outside of the bubble. They can make these short jumps, which more or less traps everyone within the White Tower. And Masana just alludes to like, oh, I would have changed where we were at some point, but now I can't because there's a dream spike. Meanwhile, Gawain is in Andor, is in Camelin still, and just concludes on his own with not really any external prompting besides his conversation with Elaine that, like, you know, I do have to be better to Edwene and just go back to her and be her warder and forget about being the bigger person in the partnership, as in the leader or the more important political figure. And he's like, everyone's right, and I just need to, like, get over it. And I'm like, okay. I mean, it's anticlimactic, and spoiler alert, it doesn't really stick, which I think tends to be, in a way, is, like, realistic. A lot of Gawain's character arc, I think, is realistic in a way that's incredibly annoying to read or to know in a person.
Right.
But, like, Gawain just sort of making a resolution and then immediately failing at it is very true to life. Unfortunately, it's just everything he does.
Right. And I agree. I think it's super realistic. I certainly do this where I'm like, if something is bothering me, I know I'm not being the bigger person. I'm going to try and be an adult and be my highest self about it. And inevitably it'll bug me again, you know? And it's unfortunate that Gawain continues to act on those worst impulses instead of just being like, hey, this is bugging me again. What's going on? It is just so frustrating that it is this thing about him and Egg and not like some other less misogynistic character trait. Because I agree, it's super realistic. Everything he's dealing with, all of his insecurities and whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Normal, I guess.
This would all be different if Gawain was in love with a man, I guess.
Yeah.
That would be something else.
That would be fine.
I'd be like, all right, fine.
We're all
Just
ambitious.
two dudes trying to deal with their separate ambitions at the same time, but instead it's like now a man-woman thing.
Yeah.
Because again, we're in Robert Jordan's world.
Yeah, really, if we even weren't in Robert Jordan's world, I think there could be something interesting about dealing with your separate ambitions and what that means in a partnership when they don't always align. And it's like, Gawain, you're... whatever. You don't have to plot solve Gawain being able to figure out how to do something else other than either be Egg's warder and be committed to her 100% and never having any individual identity, or apparently being the king of the world.
Yeah, there's pretty extremist thinking
Yeah.
in the Gawain, Glad, Elaine family. I don't know what Morgause was doing.
No shades of gray.
Maybe Tom Maryland murdering Talon. What's his
Oh.
name? Not Talonvor.
Tarangale.
Tarangale. Maybe that did something in the water, you know?
Yeah.
And that just, everyone was like, we never went to family therapy over that, so. Whoops. Anyway, Gawain, it is clear to us, the readers, has never received any reply to his mean message. He hasn't received Egg's new message.
Right.
So we, the readers, are, of course, also aware that Edwin didn't get any of his messages. So we're like, oh, something's interfering with the mail. A classic fantasy subplot.
It's always the mail.
When the mail doesn't get delivered. God damn it.
Shoot, the dang post.
Very Shakespearean.
Yeah. The whole plot hinging on your mail being delayed a couple of days.
Yeah.
Are you joking?
Again, so realistic.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. No, I never got your email, actually.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Anyway, Gawain is like, I have decided to be a good person. So I better go to Edwene. But first I gotta go tell Elaine that I'm going to Edwene. So he goes up to try and bid farewell to Elaine, and Brigitte's like, you can't go in, and she's doing some tell her unreal thing. Which we, the readers, know Elaine is not doing because she's pregnant. And that nerfs her in every conceivable way. So she, I guess, is just in there asleep.
And Brigitte is either lying or doesn't understand what's going on.
Yeah. But Brigitte's so rude, and then Gawain's like, okay, fine, I'll just go myself, tell her I said bye. So he goes to the traveling grounds, and it's like, he gets to Tarvalon, but the gateway, like, snaps shut behind him, so it's, like, intersecting with the exact moment the dream spike is entering. And he runs up to Edwine's bedroom thinking, as soon as he found out that Elaine and Edwine were in Teleron, he's like, oh, this is the perfect time for the assassins to strike, because she's asleep and doing an important thing in her sleep. So he goes running up to Edwine's bedroom, accumulating a couple of followers on the way. And just to, finish with his subplot, he gets up to Edwine's room and finds, like, there's, like, a maid who, like, got trapped in one of Egg's, like, traps, which is extremely funny to me because it implies that the Shanshan assassins were like, okay, we know there's power traps in there, so we're going to throw a random maid. Just yeet her. We don't kill her or anything. We don't know if it affects dead bodies, so we're just
gonna throw in this live woman.
So there's just a woman floating on the ceiling, Mary Winchester-Style, for this entire scene where Gawain is fighting the blood knives.
Mary Winchester-Style is so evocative.
Yeah. I think but just one of the guards dies. The other one goes for help.
Yeah. Which means Gawain,
of course, is fighting three people alone.
And it's only his love for Egg and his incredible manly prowess and good sword skills that get him through this.
He's, like, screaming for help, but no one's coming, so we are like, okay, clearly something's up outside, but don't worry. He gets it down to one other guy, or maybe two other guys, I can't remember, and then he's like, the only way I can think to even the playing field is to turn the lights out. So he grabs a pillow, and guys, it's just like that Vine,
Where he hits the lantern.
Where he hits the lantern. God, I can't even remember
I can't remember the dialogue there, but it's pretty funny. The pillow fight one.
The pillow fight one just hits it and the lights go out. He does that, and then, like, through his incredible hearing and instinct and whatnot, he kills the guys. But he takes a big
wound to the tummy.
Basically bleeding out all over Egg.
But she'll wake up and bond him, and they'll be like, we love you, let's get married. And it's like, you're 11 years old, maybe calm down.
It's also like, I wish that bonding people wasn't the way that we solved our
every
problems.
Mortal injury.
Yeah.
Have you guys considered the emergency room?
Yeah.
With a trained physician?
Like, Edwin can't heal at all?
Yeah, she's like, my skill with healing is really bad. And it's like, what are you doing? I thought you were supposed to be a very good channeler and you didn't think to learn how to heal.
You just can't heal at all? You don't have, like, basic life-saving...
Yeah, you can't just do, like, some first responder shit, you know, until Nynaeve can show up.
Yeah, even, like, loser clerics have Save the Dying or whatever that cantrip is. It's like, come on.
Stop the bleed, Egg.
Stop the bleed. You should have first level cure wounds. Come on.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous. So she's just, they're immediately like, Gawain is, you know, basically dead. They're like, we love you.
She's like, it's okay, I'll bond you, and I want to marry you. And it's like, you guys are so stupid.
You guys are so dumb.
It doesn't solve any of the problems in their relationship, is the problem. Edwin's just, like, taking it on. She's just, like, sort of... Like, I get it. You're trying to save his life, you know? But it's like, that just creates a new problem in the relationship. It doesn't solve the problems by having this magical romantic bond between you.
Yeah, I think definitely what you guys need is to be able to read each other's thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, it's kind of like when two people to save a marriage are like, let's have a baby. Let's introduce another variable who is a human with thoughts and feelings and trauma.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, no, we should have just kept that between us.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you guys should probably have just broken up before it could get, like, before breaking up meant killing each other.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
But Edwin in the World of Dreams is doing so much fighting, and Perrin is also doing so much fighting.
Yeah.
And, it's, yeah, just a very action-y sequence. I think good action sequences are designed to make you skim through them.
Yeah, it's a pacing thing for sure.
And so when you do actually, like, read them, you're like, wait, what's going on in terms of geography and bodies and whatever is happening? Mm-hmm. But the sort of, Edwin and Perrin do intersect, wherein Perrin just, like, jumps into the White Tower and is right next to Egg, and they're like, oh, what?
It's like that Spider-Man meme.
Yeah.
Pointing at each other.
And Edwin's like, Perrin, you can't be here. And Perrin's like, sure, I can. I live here. And Edwin's like, I'll just tie you up, because for some reason that's what keeps you people safe. That's my number one go-to. Yeah, is making someone helpless in the midst of a bombing. Mm-hmm. I'm like, Egg, no. But Perrin is like, I don't want to do that. So he unties himself.
He just, like, wills the weave away.
Yeah.
The wheel weaves as the wheel wills. Perrin wills as the weave weaves.
I'm so tired. Edwin's like, oh my god, he has some skills in that he understands that, you know, it's the world of dreams. That's so crazy. And Perrin, then a black Aja lady jumps out at them and tries to do balefire at them, and Perrin's like, no. And the balefire goes away, and Edwin, like, kills the lady. And Edwin's like, how'd you do that? And Perrin's like, it's just a weave. Like,
well, like it's hard.
And Edwin's like, no, it's balefire, dummy. And he's like, wait a minute. Well, Edwin, I don't know what you're doing here, but good luck.
Yeah.
And leaves. So that scene is bad on a number of levels. On the one hand, I sure love it when our main characters interact. I wish they'd interact more.
I know.
And in a variety of ways, so that not every way was bad.
Yeah.
But here we are.
This scene could have been so funny and charming.
Mm-hmm. And it's clearly meant to be funny and charming. Like, it's clearly meant to be like,
yeah,
these two who had no clue that they were both doing the same thing because the world is big and they're not in the same places until we're on Riyadh. Ho, 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 they're so funny and charming. And instead it's like, they're both incredibly condescending to each other. So mean about it.
So mean about it.
And we come away from this situation with only Edwin having, like, learned something.
Yeah.
The point is that they now both go to their climactic battles. Perrin has his confrontation with Slayer. Edwin has her confrontation with Masana. And Edwin takes her experience with Perrin into the confrontation with Masana. And it's like, I need to remember that in the world of dreams, things are as I will them. It's all just strength of will. So therefore, she magics away the Adam that Masana was holding on her, is, like, I do not accept this as my reality, and we can have a literal battle of wills, and I will come out on top. Mm-hmm. Because my good friend Perrin reminded me that that's more important than channeling. Inadvertently, obviously. Yeah. But it's not like Perrin then goes into his meeting with Slayer and is like, I've learned something from Edwene. Because Perrin's already learned everything. Because Perrin's perfect.
Yeah, the scene just reeks of, like, classic Wheel of Time misogyny. Like, women are never gonna have as much skill at men, even in something that Egg has been training in for a really long time and has, like, a natural gift in. So that's really annoying. I also found this scene incredibly annoying because it reminded me how bizarre everything going on with Perrin is. Like, there's a lot of really solid world building around the world of dreams and the way that channelers interact with it. Mm-hmm. You know, Rand has done interesting stuff there. The Wise Ones, the Aes Sedai, our main trio of women in particular. And it's like, that's all been really set up for us. And then Perrin's whole thing is just that he can talk to wolves and wolves go to the dream world. And it's just like, it was frustrating to me anew how random that is and how little explanation we are given for any of that. And I know a lot of that is intentional. It's like, quote unquote, wild magic. Mm-hmm. But it just feels like even if that is the idea in the world building, like, I should know a little bit more about what's going on. Like, I shouldn't feel that it's so random that Perrin alone is so good at this.
Yeah, it's like trying to be like subtextual when everything with Edwene in the world of dreams has been so like textual, if that makes sense. Like with Perrin, it's like, oh, Perrin goes to the world of dreams because he has his special wolf skills, because being a wolf guy is liminal and the world of dreams is liminal, I guess. And we're just supposed to like take our outside understanding of these tropes and apply them to what Perrin is experiencing, as opposed to Edwene being sat down and told, you are a capital D dreamer.
Right.
That means you can do this and this and this.
Right.
And that means you need to go to school and learn this and this and this. Mm-hmm. It's just Perrin hopping around, occasionally having, like, the same sorts of dreams that Edwene is having. And the only narrative purpose I can think of for this is that Robert Jordan wanted to spend more time in the world of dreams because it's an incredibly interesting,
it's cool,
like, set piece. But didn't want it to be only the women interacting with the world of dreams or something.
Yeah.
It's very weird. I think my only fix that I could think of is if Perrin and Edwene had intersected way earlier than this. And then Perrin could have been like, what's this now? This is a real thing and not just a me thing?
Not just a wolf thing? Yeah.
Oh, just people can go here, you know? And then, like, have an external sort of map for what's going on with him. Instead of Perrin constantly being in the dark about his identity, which is another of his least interesting character traits, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. That he's just like, I'm the only one in the world who's ever suffered or experienced the sort of things that I'm experiencing, except, I guess, Elias.
Yeah.
But he seems to have it all figured out, so really it's just me. Mm-hmm. That's like, dude.
Yeah, you're right. We've talked at length about how, like, archetypically this makes sense in, like, the liminal space and liminal creatures, and, like, my brain has no problem accepting the world of dreams plus wolves. But you're right, it relies on so much external knowledge in a world that is really committed to its internal magic system. So I think if that's something that they wanted to do, they, being the authors, I would have loved a little more intentionality there, other than just, like you said, Perrin is the most specialist boy who ever lived, and therefore he can talk to wolves. He is a wolf?
Mm-hmm.
Question mark? So, it just bugged me.
Yeah, it's just, the whole thing is just kind of annoying. And yeah, this clash of worlds makes it, like, suddenly clear to us, like, how differently the sort of Perrin and Edwene Teleron experiences have been treated by the authors. Mm-hmm. Like, we have been with Egg, it feels like, in every excruciating step of this journey. Mm-hmm. Whereas Perrin, we got the speedrun version. And now it should be the other way around, that Edwene knows way more and has way more experience. And is like, no, you dummy, don't do this and this and this. But instead, it's Perrin, and it's like, He simply has not earned that from us.
Nope, no way.
Oh, silly. Anyway, Perrin confronts Slayer, who has, like, managed to stab Hopper, and then throws Hopper off the top of the White Tower, and Perrin goes and catches him Superman style in Lois Lane. But then Hopper's just, like, dying slowly. Perrin's like, I need to heal you. And it's like, apparently you can't heal people in the world of dreams. Again, I think that's something Edwene could have told you, but
yeah,
here we are. And Perrin finally gets rid of, well, Perrin finally, like, tackles Slayer into a nightmare that just conveniently popped up right next to them. And in the nightmare, he is like, I will throw the dream spike into the nightmare lava. Because also conveniently, this nightmare has lava in it.
Sure.
And it's like, oh no. So he has successfully vanquished the dream spike. He has not vanquished Slayer, who disappears and is like, I'll be back. And it's like, you'll always be back. You're so goddamn annoying.
I know. Unkillable.
Yeah, literally unkillable. But Hopper dies and is like, peace out, dude. But also find Boundless. And we're like, who the fuck is Boundless? Why are we bringing another mentor into this?
It's very much the Moiraine Cat Swan situation. Yeah. Like, if the mentor's gotta die, they have to be dead.
The mentor's dead, you know? But we're like, okay, that was so weird. And then Perrin wakes up and is like, his army is mostly moved because, hey, the traveling got fixed. Perrin's all, like, wounded. Fail has... I wish we had been in Fail's point of view when she saw blood just start...
Yeah, squirting horror movie style out of her husband's sleeping body. Yeah.
And Fail knows first aid, so unlike Edwene, she was able to stabilize him, presumably, long enough to get a channeler in there. But Perrin goes to join his army and is like, I just want to get the fuck away from this place. He's like, it smells bad here. And I think that will be explained later, but I can't remember. He's like, I thought the vibes would be back to normal once the dream spike was gone, but they're not, so...
Bad vibes. Moon's haunted.
Moon's haunted. And yeah, Edwene, in her confrontation with Masana, has this battle of wills that eventually, we are told, breaks Masana's mind. So she is no longer fully there.
Yeah.
And, like, we were just talking about how authors seem to feel the need to kill characters, like mentors and stuff, fulfill those archetypes. But another extremely annoying archetype is, like, not killing the villain.
Yes!
It's like, dude, Edwene has another, like, moment that is preceding this one, wherein she does something very similar to another woman by imposing her will on her. And then is like, oh, I don't know if I can kill her, because now she's helpless.
Barf.
And it's like, okay, well, it's sort of like a mental thing rather than, like, you know, in physical fights, you pin someone down and then you stab them. Mm-hmm. That's how most physical, actual John Wick style fights are won. You get someone so they can't fight back, and then you kill them.
Yes.
So if you've done that in the mental arena rather than the physical one, it's still morally reprehensible because it's morally reprehensible to kill someone, but that's the world you have chosen to live in.
Yeah.
So. And then when Edwene does this to Masana, she's not even like, oh, well, should I just kill her? She just is like, here's
Masana.
Here's this person who is more or less going to need to be on life support for the rest of her. And I'm not trying to, like, start an ethics discussion about euthanasia or anything like that. But clearly the author's intent is, like, Masana's off the playing field.
Right.
But she's still technically breathing.
Yeah, and therefore Egg is not technically a bad guy or something.
Yeah, like, Egg has been murking people left and right throughout this scene.
Yeah, so, like,
burning them alive, causing buildings to fall on them. But then when it's just a one-on-one confrontation with Masana, it has to be like a...
Right. I also think in both these instances where Egg is dealing with these women, like, she disables them. They're, you know, nonverbal, like you said, likely going to be on life support or whatever the equivalent is and need, you know, 24/7 care. And so it just, once that happens, we then introduce this incredibly paternalistic attitude about disabled people where it's like, essentially, it's okay to do this to them, but it's not okay to kill them. And again, there's a lot of ethics involved in that conversation, which is like probably a much larger discussion than the last few minutes we have remaining in our
45-minute ding-dong podcast.
Yeah, silly little ding-dong podcast. But it's like, it's a common trope that you'll see, that it's like we can take the villain off the plate by just like disabling them, both in terms of like the technical, they are no longer on the playing field, but also like disabled as an identity. And then we can't kill them because, you know, that's tragic.
Yeah, it's just like this dumb thing in fantasy where we're like, we can't just kill the villain because I don't know.
Yeah, and it's never anything about like truly the ethics of taking a human life. It's never
if the
about
ethics
that.
of taking a human life were an issue,
Yeah.
like, then it should have been an issue much earlier.
Yeah, like, it's obviously not about that, because like you said, Egg is lighting people on, she's burning them alive. She obviously does not give a fuck about killing the Black Asha. So it really is just this, like, you know, posturing, what term am I thinking of? Just like virtue signaling, basically, in a way, is what I'm trying to say. I think that it's like, remember, she's a good guy.
Yeah,
and
our characters are good people because they hesitate to kill in cold blood as opposed to killing in normal blood.
Normal blood. What?
Yeah, it makes me think of the, like, Atlas 6, when it's like the whole issue is we have to kill someone.
Yeah.
And it's like, you guys started this book by killing a multitude of people.
Yeah.
And also they're like, but we know each other. And I'm like, you patently hate each other.
Yeah, particularly the person you're proposing to kill. You all fucking despise them, which is wrong and incorrect. The Alice 6 is a fun read, and we talked about it on We Don't Watch Outlander and discussed this issue at length about, like,
the morality of killing. When you're going to introduce that into your text, it's sort of a black and white thing. You either have to introduce it big time with your characters a la Aang.
Yeah.
Or you have to accept that you're a hypocrite.
Yeah, and also, like, I think we've talked about this on the podcast more, I wish more texts would just lean into the fact, like, I personally obviously believe that killing is bad, because I believe in the inherent value of human life. But when you're occupying a story with this level of violence, it's not necessarily a bad thing for killing to be part of everyday life. It doesn't always have to be a huge moral quandary. And again, like you said, if you're going to do it correctly. Don't just be hypocritical about it. And also, if you're going to be hypocritical about it, just let people kill people.
Yeah, morality is shaped by context.
Yes.
Is a crucial thing that storytellers seem to forget, especially fantasy storytellers. Like, they'll introduce this Game of Thrones level violent world and then be like, oh, but killing's wrong. And I'm like, I simply don't believe that they would really
feel that way.
I think they would think, I am pro-capital punishment.
Yeah, I am pro-capital punishment, and kind of like, the world is mine for the taking. Like, I just have to create my world, and that sometimes means killing my enemies. I didn't phrase that last bit very well, but you're so right. It's not like Sir Jaime Lannister is going to be like, oh, should I kill somebody?
Yeah, and you're like, what?
And like, to the point of like morality being shaped by context, Masana is a bad person. And again, we can so dive into the ethics of capital punishment until the end of time, but like, what do you gain by not killing one of your main villains?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just that she's there as like a vague threat to us. Like, we're gonna, for the next book and a half, be like, is Masana gonna come back in some way? And it's like, I hope not, because she wasn't a very good villain.
No, she was in terms of Forsaken, incredibly boring.
Except not quite as bad as the actual Forsaken point of view we get here, which is Grendel being like,
yeah,
damn it, the dream spike thing didn't work, but at least I have my other evil plan. And we're like, girl,
what evil plan?
What the fuck?
Could you stop?
Yeah.
Hey, Grendel, stop.
But don't worry, what happens to Grendel at the end of this book is worse than what happens to Masana, because again, we can't just kill women.
Yeah, we just have to, again, this is another instance of we cannot kill women, we just have to, like, humiliate and do horrible things to them in other ways that are not killing.
I guess I end this podcast sad about Hopper, mad about everything else.
Yeah.
It's like a Hopper-shaped sadness.
Okay, I'll draw a wolf.
Draw a little wolf howling at the moon.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Hopper.
I know.
You were So good.
That's such a good character.
Everything else stinks.
Everything else just sort of bad.
Yeah. Well,
That's it.
now, I didn't even mention this when you first said it. You said something like, this is the climactic sequence for both Edwin and Perrin. And I was like, yeah, that is how I've been framing it. That's how we've both been framing it. But then I was like forced to confront, because I've been thinking about the upcoming chapters. Perrin has like 6 climaxes in this book.
Cool. I
mean,
love that.
There was the trial. There's whatever is going on here. There's more to come.
Okay, well, statement rescinded.
Yeah.
This podcast has been edited for accuracy.
So the next chapter will deal with Avienda, an extremely weird chapter that even Wheel of Time readers with their little Reddit threads were like, what?
Listen, if the Wheel of Time wiki people don't know, I'm not gonna have any fucking idea.
Yeah, basically people for the last 10 years have been like, hey, Brandon? What?
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. And then we'll just get some Perrin and Glad stuff. More Perrin climactic sequences. But we will get a Perrin sequence that I actually really like.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Forging stuff.
Nice. I do
Magic
love a
weapons.
smith. Yeah.
Neald.
I love a... That's my bestie.
That's my bestie.
That's my bestie. Neald is my best
Twirling
friend. Yeah, that's my bestie.
Okay, so that's what's on the docket. That's our moods. Anything else to add?
No.
Thank you for listening. Thanks to our friend Glenn. I don't know why I start. Nah, she's my friend. Thanks to our friend Glenn McKenzie for our theme song. Thanks to our patrons on Patreon and our followers on social media.
Ed is currently sitting on Emily's book. Like, it's open, face down. It's a paperback, so, to hold her spot. And he's just sitting on half of it, and his little chest fat is, like, rolling over the spine.
Ed.
Good news about Ed's health, if anyone was curious. He has once again put on his weight. He's quite chunky. He's on his right medication, and he is psychologically tormenting us because we don't feed him every hour on the hour.
We feed him 4 times a day, which is 2 more times a day than most cats get fed. So
2 more times than Tybalt gets fed.
thank you all for listening.
Thank
Do
you.
you have a sign off?
Yes. Oh my god. So last week, part of the reason we did not have an episode last week is that I was traveling and ended up experiencing some delays due to the weather and other airline problems. But I was flying up to Washington, the state of Washington, to visit my brother and his family. And on the flight up there, my mom likes to sit in the aisle, so I always end up sitting in the middle, which doesn't really bother me. But there was a person, I assume a woman, but I probably shouldn't make those assumptions. Anyway, this woman sitting next to me in the window seat, talking on the phone the entire time in a foreign language. Fine, but well after the flight attendant was like, you have to turn your phone off. She was just like chattering away. And then once the flight takes off, she pulls out a freezer bag full of hard-boiled eggs and proceeds to crack them back into the freezer bag and eat these eggs while sitting next to me. Which is like the worst possible airplane food, right? Like, who brings hard-boiled eggs on an airplane? So smelly, so weird. I'm also allergic to eggs, like, not to the point of being anaphylactic, but I was like, they made me super nauseous. Just the smell of eggs in general is pretty gross. But yeah, she proceeded to eat like 6 hard-boiled eggs while sitting next to me. This is a true story. My mother will corroborate.
I'm stunned.
Yeah.
And disgusted.
Isn't that such a wild airplane food? She brought those through security. And security was probably like, what the fuck?
Ma'am?
I guess this is technically allowed, but why would you?
We have to pour out our waters. We have
I
to
know!
take off our shoes, and people are allowed to bring 6 hard-boiled eggs onto flights.
It was so
That's
gross.
even worse than my flight story, which is when my nephew pissed his pants.
That's a pretty good story. That should be your sign-off next week.
Yeah, I'll get permission.
Yeah.
From Will.
Hey, Will, can I talk about you
Can I
peeing?
humiliate you on the podcast? No, it's okay. He's 3.
He won't care.
He won't care. Yeah. Flying. Terrible.
Terrible.
Eggs.
Please don't bring eggs on your next
Dear
plane ride.
God. All right, everyone. Have a good week.
Bye.